Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and we are going to be talking about professional wrestling here for a couple of hours right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. And as usual, if you can find it in your heart to leave a like on the video if you're watching this on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify, that would be tremendous. And it also helps the channel grow tremendously. That's why I ask. So I would appreciate any assistance on that front. And especially if you like it, it's a great way to show me this. Like, hey, Warren, good job. Like the stars. That's all fantastic. As for tonight specifically, well, we've got a nifty little show. We got a couple of reviews lined up. I have the Stardom The Conversion show, the Stardom The Conversion 2025, actually, that we've got lined up for a review, as well as CMLL's Fantastica Mania show that they held a couple of days ago. The big collaborative show with New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW/Ring of Honor. And we've got some, just a couple of bits and bobs to talk about as well. We're going to talk about Aaron Wolf being signed to New Japan Pro Wrestling and why that's a big deal. And in fact, we're going to start with that. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Thank you very much for being here. Let's get to it. New Japan has made a big announcement, and they announced that they have signed Olympic gold medalist Aaron Wolf. And not only that, they have his debut set for Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th, 2026. Let's read a bit of this article by Brian Rose over there at the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 Online. The company announced today being today, actually, the 23rd of June, that Aaron Wolf, who won the 2020 Olympic gold medal in judo at 100 kilograms, had signed with the company. Shortly after that announcement, New Japan Pro Wrestling President Hiroshi Tanahashi said that Wolf would have his first professional wrestling match on January 4th, 2026 at the Tokyo Dome. Wolf said during the press conference that he had just come from his last judo tournament as a college student. He said he always looked forward to watching World Pro Wrestling, New Japan's television show, and realized that this could be a new way to express himself through violence and throwing people around, which I'm completely okay with. He said he had started training this month. Tanahashi said that while he wouldn't be living with the rest of the Young Lions, he would be training with them in their dojo and would be attending events prior to his debut. Takaki Kidani, CEO of New Japan Pro Wrestling's parent company Bushiroad, said he was very happy and appreciative of Wolf's decision to enter pro wrestling. In addition to his Olympic gold medal, Wolf has also won gold in the 2017 World Judo Championship. I watched the press conference. Turned out I was battling a little. I had a little trouble falling asleep last evening, so I was up late enough to watch the proceedings live and in the flesh. And I gotta say, I don't know if any of you actually watched it, but this Wolf kid, well, he's not a kid. He's 29 years old. He's a big lad. That's a big guy. He's very hefty. He was standing next to Hiroshi Tanahashi, and he did not look small. He did not look small. This is a substantial announcement from New Japan here. Because all in all, Aaron Wolf is a bit of he's a mainstream figure. People know who he is. When he announced his retirement from judo not that long ago, it made national news. And this is a guy who goes around doing, morning shows, like Good Morning America or Good Morning Tokyo or Japan or whatever the fuck, right? He has the notoriety. And the important thing to underscore here, even if it doesn't seem impressive for us over here on this side of the Pacific, it is perceived to be a big deal for New Japan, who consider this to be a really big signing. They see this as a really big acquisition for them to continue to push forward and get some notoriety, some of that mainstream attention, which is why you go and sign these people, right? You know, a lot of people were like, oh, it's kind of like Gable Steveson, right? Well, sure, but if Gable Steveson was charismatic and, you know, hadn't raped, basically, whereas, you know, I think maybe comparisons to Kurt Angle are maybe a little more adept, somewhere between a mix between Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey. Now, of course, Ronda Rousey was not an Olympic athlete, but was a crossover star. She was a crossover personality. And this is where Aaron Wolf falls. Joe Lanza from the flagship over at Voices of Wrestling, he did a little more digging and put together a little more of an article with a few more details. Here's a couple of choice paragraphs here. I mentioned that he had recently retired from judo. And despite that retirement, Wolf has maintained celebrity status in Japan as a constant subject of newspaper headlines and pop culture outlets, and frequently making the rounds on the talk show circuit. On June 22nd, Wolf was a guest on TBS's, not TBS, you know, Turner Broadcasting. It's like in Japan. He was on their show called Sunday Morning Show, where he once again, you know, shot down the idea of him becoming a judo coach, where he said, quote, "At the moment, I don't feel like I want to teach anyone anything. I have a strong desire to be at the forefront myself, so I will make an announcement of my future at a later date. So please keep an eye out for that." And then it turns out, like the very next day, New Japan is calling an emergency press conference and bringing him in. Here's a few more notes that Joe was able to pull up here. Wolf signing with New Japan has been the subject of speculation in Japan and among deep Western New Japan fans for some time. So aside from the abrupt timing of the press conference, the announcement was not a major surprise. Wolf is close friends with Kazuchika Okada and has openly discussed trying his hand at pro wrestling for years. I was told that he has a long-standing relationship with Yuji Nagata. This is being viewed internally as a major acquisition. The dual generation Tanahashi retirement and Wolf debut combination will be a much needed major hook for Wrestle Kingdom, with New Japan Pro Wrestling lacking an ace for the first time in decades and not having an obvious traditional world title main event match on the horizon. Wolf, who is listed at 5'11" and appeared to be a significantly larger man than Tanahashi at the presser, is a clear-cut heavyweight. He brings mainstream fame, gold medal Olympic credentials, and obvious good looks and physical charisma. He is the type of athlete New Japan has traditionally coveted. I'm sure Antonio Inoki is looking down on this and smiling. And if he takes to pro wrestling, he will be pushed hard and has obvious main event upside and ceiling. In another era, he would have been a total athletic flop. In another era, he'd have to be a total athletic flop to not become a major star. Today, if he exhibits even average crowd connection, he has a chance to stand out immediately on a roster in a promotion that has struggled to elevate the last few classes of potential heavyweight stars. The signing comes at a time where New Japan is at a serious crossroads in terms of identifying the next generation of the top of the card stars. They need Wolf to hit, and with Tanahashi and Kidani handling the public introduction and the planned January 4 debut, it's clear they see this as a big swing that they feel is a potential game changer. This is one thing that must not be lost on North American folks here, is this press conference brought in the president of New Japan, which is normal, but also brought in the CEO of the parent company, right? Kidani wouldn't have come over if they had just signed, I don't know, like Ozawa, or you know what I'm talking about. Like, this is a major, major, major big deal. And they got the brass out for this one. This was a huge thing that was picked up. I did a few Google searches afterwards, after waking up this morning, did a few Google searches. This news was picked up everywhere in Japanese media. So, this is the kind of thing that all wrestling promotions ultimately want. And New Japan, like Joe pointed out, is in a spot where if they have this opportunity, they can't really turn it down to bring in a guy who has natural charisma, good looks. If he can do it in the ring, if he can start his training and become decent, or dare we say good even, he has a huge shot at going right to the top. What about his training, Warren? Well, according to Joe, who spoke to a New Japan source, Aaron Wolf began intensive training last month. It was described that this would not be a typical celebrity rush job. Wolf is being trained properly from the ground up, and as a longtime fan, he is all in on the idea of becoming a pro wrestler, doing it the right way, and taking his training very seriously. In total, he'll have about 7 months to prepare for what will be the highest profile, highest pressure debut possible on quite possibly the largest possible stage. So there you go. I think Joe did a tremendous job here, sort of piecing everything together and doing a little extra digging to really convey the sense of how substantial a signing this is for New Japan. And I want to underscore one thing that he mentioned, and I think it's really worth pointing out here. This has to work for New Japan. This guy is not coming in, at a bargain price. I'm sure he negotiated himself a nice little salary to do this, and that's absolutely fine. And even outside of the investment, of the obvious return on investment that he has to supply, this has to work out in the ring. If they are making some hullabaloo around this, and they are saying that he's going to debut at the biggest show of the year on the Tanahashi retirement show, essentially, yeah, he sort of has to deliver. He has to rise up to the occasion, because it won't be something easy. And I think this is something that, even though people like myself seem to be excited about it, I'm not excited in the sense where I'm like, oh, I know this guy's career. I followed his career. It's so tremendous. It's not as if, it's not like when, let's say, Will Ospreay gets signed to AEW and suddenly I'm like, oh my God, this is exciting stuff. I'm like, I understand how significant of a deal this is for New Japan. I understand what they're putting into this. And I also understand how badly they need this to work. They really need this experiment that they're pulling off, essentially. They need that to work. So, I'm not like excited in trepidation for his debut, but I am very curious. I am looking forward to it. Because if New Japan clearly thinks he can be some kind of game changer for the company, well, that is a lot of pressure that's being put on him. And I myself kind of hope that he'll be in a position to deliver. Can this guy talk? Can he be? Look, he was very charismatic during the interview last night. The press conference. These things are usually very straight-laced. You've got, that's usually the type of environment. And he cracked a couple of jokes. I didn't understand the jokes. I don't, but everyone got a good laugh out of it. Tanahashi, even Kidani, who's got this perpetual droopy, mouth shape, just perpetually, he even cracked a smile. So, it's a huge acquisition. They're getting they're getting a mainstream crossover star to join their ranks. He seems excited to do this the right way. He's been wanting to do the pro wrestling thing for a bit. The telltale, basically the story they're telling around him is absolutely fine. That's what they should be saying, It'll probably make, some people grit their teeth a little bit. Some people, some observers, some people from inside the company, no one likes no one likes it when someone skips the line. He's not going to be living in the dojo. He's not going to go through years of rigorous training and, wearing the black shorts and the black boots, his head shaved. They're not doing any of that. He's going to go right for it. But then again, what else do you do? What do you do? Do you send this guy to live in the dojo when he's a star and he's ready to go? It's no, you capitalize on this shit. You go for it. You just go. It's the best possible business move. Will it pay off? Look, this is going to be one of the most significant talking points, discussion points of New Japan Pro Wrestling all throughout 2026. It's going to be Aaron Wolf. So I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. I am unfamiliar with his work. I am not going to pretend that I've been locked into the international amateur judo scene. I'm not going to pretend that I could give you proper analysis of his gold medal win in 2020. What are we doing here? So I'm going to be straight up and I'm going to be out. And anyone, unless they are actual judoka, right? People who are into it or who practice the sport, unless they have some insights, no one can tell you how he's going to take to pro wrestling. We're going to have to see it for ourselves. I didn't even come to think of it. I don't even think a judo practitioner could tell you with confidence whether he's going to take to pro wrestling or not. Look, it's big enough news that the Noah world champion Ozawa tweeted about it as it was happening. And he was being very snarky about it, saying, how many times have we heard that someone was coming into the business and was going to have a debut, but it never happened? He's not wrong. It's big news. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You don't have to be excited. I'm not saying you need to be excited and start tweeting about it, but it should be treated like a significant event. In an environment where pro wrestling websites will create news headlines out of shit like Zelina Vega cried when Aleister Black showed up for his first day at WWE, or look at this photo Dom Mysterio took of Trish Stratus. It's if you're able to create news out of puerile garbage like that, you can do a little research and create some actual factual news, like the second or third, let's say third biggest pro wrestling company in the world signing a massive pump the brakes on massive, a crossover star to their promotion who just so happens to be a former Olympic gold medalist. What did they say? The first Olympic gold medalist to join New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe. God, what would Inoki have done? What would he have given to be able to do that? To sign an Olympic gold medalist to come wrestle? What would he have given up? His kids, his grandkids? I think he would have given his grandkids away to be able to do that. Inokiism is back, baby. But that's my point. And it's going to be it's going to be significant for the Japanese audience. We'll see how things go. For us, it'll be like, is he fun to watch? Is he a good wrestler? Because that's what's going to matter to us over here in North America the most. It's going to be like, is he good to watch? Can we have fun watching him? That's mostly it. But sometimes it's just really, really frustrating. It's just really, really frustrating when you see the amount of complete unnecessary news that gets put out there. And sometimes even news that's running kayfabe angles. You're like, why is the news site running that is unaffiliated with the company? Why are they running kayfabe headlines? And they won't give this the light of day. They won't give this the proper treatment it needs to. Just stick to the press conference and not make their audiences understand why this is significant. Again, like, the articles on this, maybe outside of Joe's and John Pollock's, they really fail, I should say, to give the scope of how significant Aaron Wolf is in Japan. And why it's a big get for New Japan, and why New Japan internally is considering this a blockbuster acquisition. We'll have to see. We'll see very shortly, in a few months. We'll see very, very shortly whether it was worth it or not. We'll see it with our own eyes. But in the meantime, the announcement in and about itself is huge news. Hadn't gotten around to it just yet, but I wanted to sort of talk about the state as of today, and we're recording this on June 23rd, 2025, not 2020, we're not going back in time, of the AEW All In Texas show. Just see how things are shaping up, how things are coming together, what else could we expect on the show, and so on and so forth. Just give some overall thoughts so far for the big show. So as it stands right now, we know about 4 matches. There are 4 matches that have been confirmed for All In. There'll probably be a couple of more added this week. I'd say at least one more. That would be my guess. So the 4 matches that we know of for sure right now: Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Hangman Adam Page. Timeless Tony Storm defending the AEW Women's World Championship versus Mercedes Moné. Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada going for a winner-take-all unification match for the inaugural AEW Unified Championship and a Casino Gauntlet match. That's what we have set up so far. I talk about a lot of these feuds very intensively every Thursday on the Dynamite review. So there's a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily want to relegate here. But this is the 3 singles matches that we have right now, like outside of the Casino Gauntlet match, the 3 that we have confirmed right now are terrific. Like, these are legitimately terrific matches. And look, Moxley Page has been expertly built. I think that everything that's been done from the lead up to Double or Nothing with the Owen Hart Cup tournament right into now has been spectacular. They have done such a good job making this title feel significant, important, the biggest thing that you could possibly wrestle for. It's been so well done, and everyone has played their part. And as we keep advancing, you can see more and more how pieces are starting to fall into place. Now, what I'm looking forward to in the next few weeks is more one-to-one interaction between Page and Moxley. And what I mean by that is less things that touch on the extended world title universe, with Swerve and Osprey and the Bucks. And I want champion and challenger to get a little nastier with each other. I get it. We've got a nice big net that's been cast that involves a whole bunch of people, and that's really interesting. It also involves the ops to a degree. But now I think we're inching towards the necessity of having Mox and Strickland Mox and Paige, excuse me, focus a little more on each other. Paige has to sort of set aside the extraneous stories and focus on the one that is supposed to put asses in the seats, and that's your main event world championship match. Because I'm afraid it might turn too much into, this big convoluted, this not convoluted, but a story with too many moving parts when you should be focusing on getting people into the building to see your main event. Now, they did that this week, this past Wednesday at Grand Slam Mexico, where Paige came in and he was zeroed in on Mox, and that's good. That's what I want to see more of, personally. Not that I haven't been enjoying what they've been doing, because I have, tremendously. I think it's been extremely well put together, well woven, smartly done. But let's not forget that the crux of this world championship isn't all the friends we've made along the way. It is the world championship itself. Timeless Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné, I think, has so much gas, and there's so much more to deliver. I love the Toni Storm attack this week, just dropping Mercedes with all of her gold. I thought that was such a tremendous visual. It's good stuff. I want more of that. Toni Storm is great. Mercedes Moné is great. I'm looking forward to it. And look, Okada and Omega, I am thrilled to be able to see a Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match live and in the flesh. I'm privileged. I feel excited about it. This is a big time match, and I am excited that I'm going to get to see a big time match. Something that has historical significance, and probably the last big match that these two will ever have against each other ever again. They're both getting up there in age, and Kenny with his injuries and whatnot, there's only so much there's only so much blood we'll be able to squeeze out of this stone. And these two guys are going to go completely all out, pun intended. No, but not really. They're going to go all out to make this match feel absolutely special. Now, there are matches that I think we can see coming, but haven't been put together just yet, that haven't been announced. I think that Mystico is not going to be done with MJF. I don't think it's a mistake that MJF has been going after Mystico's mask in the past couple of weeks, and that he outright unmasked him at Arena Mexico last Wednesday. That's usually a sign of an apuestas match, and I think the trade is going to be hair versus mask. And look, I think you throw that there, that's another huge match. You throw that on this card, and that is a fourth huge match with Mystico, one of the biggest pro wrestling stars in the business, against MJF, despicable heel all around, going one-on-one with a legendary type of match that will attract Lucha Libre fans. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see when they finally do announce the match, how many units that's going to move. How many tickets are going to be purchased once you announce that Mystico and MJF are going to be going one-on-one in a hair versus mask match. That's going to be really interesting to see. Because I feel like by doing it in Texas, geographically speaking, you should be able to draw some extra people into the building. You should get some Lucha fans in there, because this will be a big time Lucha event. There's no way that Mystico is losing his mask. Okay? That's just not happening. But that's not why you want to see it. You want to see it because you want MJF and all of his lovely hair gets shaved off his head after spending all that time getting all that hair put back in. He's gonna get it shaved off. You want to see this? Now, you can make an argument that, oh, you should save this for Arena Mexico. Sure, you could make an argument to say, let's save this for the anniversary show later this year in September. And I'd be sure. I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't think Tony Khan would be pushing for that kind of match if it didn't benefit him in a more significant way than, through a talent exchange. Look, they've been giving Místico video packages for the past few weeks. And we all thought it was leading up to his match on TV and the match at Grand Slam against MJF. But I think the packages ultimately are to get the audience more and more familiar with Místico. Yes, for the Grand Slam match, but beyond that as well. I think Tony Khan ponying up the cash for Místico's old entrance theme, Me Muero? I think so. The name escapes my mind right now. But Tony Khan ponying up for the old theme song in Arena Mexico, knowing that the audience would go nuts and, sing along and make Místico come across like the biggest pro wrestler on earth, I think that's not a mistake either. I think these are all booking gambles that Tony took to further this story with MJF so that they could get to an apuestas match down the line. And that will probably be at All In. And I'd be 100% okay with that. It'd be exciting. And then you have MJF, the heel that no one likes, and everyone thinks, oh, he gets away with everything. Oh, he's such a dickhead, and so on and so forth. Then he will get his comeuppance. And you shall regale in that. I think it's good. I think it's really, really good. So I absolutely think that this is a match we're going to get at All In. Just like Swerve and Ospreay versus the Bucks. And god damn, that would be another straight up incredible match. It would be so good. Another, like you easily have with those two extra matches that I added here, just a top of the card with 5 matches that are just absolute certified insano matches with some of the best wrestlers on planet Earth. In all 5 of these matches. In all 5 of them. I say it so often. The depth of talent this AEW roster has is preposterous. This is quite likely, quite assuredly, the greatest professional wrestling locker room ever put together in the history of pro wrestling. I don't know of any other time in history where one promotion has had so much top tier, high level, world class talent than AEW has today. And you can see it right here. These matches that they're putting together, incredible. That they're at least touching on. That's what I'm expecting. And in the Casino Gauntlet match, you know what? I'm expecting Bryan Danielson to show up. Danielson going out there at the end of Grand Slam Mexico, throwing a Busaku knee, landing, flat backing that one. I think he's getting the itch again. He was sitting in the audience watching the Tuesday night show with Chris Hero, grinning from ear to ear with his Smokey the Bear, hat on, just grinning. And he's telling Hero, I'm going to do this again, brother. Here I go. We are so close. We are so close. Now, I'm sure we'll have a couple of neat surprises there. I'm sure Danielson. And here, what I appreciate is that the Casino Gauntlet match is coming back, and it's been a while since we've had the last one. It's been a rather extended time since we've had the match. I remember talking about it not all that long ago during the last Casino Gauntlet match, which was it the tag team one? Anyway, I was saying, look, we've had too many. We're abusing of them now. They don't feel special. There's too many of them. They should be brought out more rarely, as opposed to a little more frequently. I think otherwise you lose a lot of the charm of them, and one of the charms of the Casino Gauntlet match is the surprise appearances, right? Because let's not forget the essence of the gimmick. It's just you just have to line up backstage. It's a first come first serve situation, and if you're next in line, you go out. So anyone could show up. That's the point. So you could have a guy like Bryan Danielson. You could have just about anyone. Do they have someone show up from New Japan and start setting up something for Forbidden Door? Maybe. Maybe. Anyway, we've got, there's some interesting, there's definitely some interesting breadcrumbs that are being laid here. But if you're a betting person, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial advice. But if you're a betting person, I'd put some money on Danielson being in the Casino Gauntlet match. Is that the match with the Joker? No. This is the match where the Casino Gauntlet match is not the Casino ladder match thing, the Face of the Revolution gimmick. This is where two people start and they keep adding someone every 2 minutes until someone gets a pinfall or a victory. That's the Casino Gauntlet match. Athena, Thunder Rosa, Kyle Fletcher, Cole Fletcher. Yeah, I think Adam Cole, Kyle Fletcher is pretty much a shoe-in as well. I think they're going to do that, and Adam Cole's going to lose his title to Ze Protostar. I think that's pretty much given. Athena Thunder Rosa is being rumored heavily, isn't it? That one has started like gaining some traction. That one's been gaining some traction quite a bit. So yeah, I think they'll do that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's on the pre-show between us all. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, if you want to go to the barricades right now, go right ahead. But and look, and it's no one else's fault than Tony's, right, for making Ring of Honor feel like second rate. Because I don't know why you'd fit the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship on the main card. Darn it, there was another one that just popped into my mind. And and we'll probably have. I'm very bullish on this. We are probably going to have the finals of the tournament for the inaugural Women's Tag Team Championship. I'm convinced that they're going to be doing that as well. That's going to be a part of the show. They're probably, let's see, they're going to find a way to put Ricochet on the show, who's been a pretty integral part of everything. Let me see here. So Konosuke Takeshita might be involved. The G1 starts on July 19. So he might be involved, but since he's not going to be there for the summer, I don't necessarily expect him to have a prominent match. He might just be there for shits and giggles. FTR, I think, is going to be involved. The FTR is going to be on the show, 100%. You know what? Kota Ibushi returning in the Casino Gauntlet match is a perfect way for him to work his way back into the show. I think that's the perfect way to bring him back. And I know some people want to see they would like to see a women's Casino Gauntlet match. I don't know if I want to see two gauntlet matches. Just give me one or the other. Essentially. Give me one or the other. I don't know if I want to. Because if there's one thing that WWE has taught me before I stopped watching it, is having 2 Royal Rumbles is too much. Having 2 Money in the Bank matches, is too much, because it just, one of them is drained by the other. One of them will take will take all the big spots, all the really creative spots, and the other one will have to just make do. And it's usually the women's one, right? Where the big spots happen during the men's matches, but you can't do the same spots. So there's stuff that the men's does, and if they're produced to hit those spots, well, the women's matches aren't doing it. So I'm not that big a fan of it. I know a lot of people want it, but you got to think bigger picture here. And I really don't think I really don't think it would be a successful operation to have both on the same show. I really don't. Here would be my counter proposal. Have a women's gauntlet match at Forbidden Door, where then you have the possibility to have the Stardom girls involved. That would actually rock. That would rock and roll. And that's, better than just being shoehorned into the show, because that's what people have been screaming for. I guess you can bring back the Casino Battle Royal. No, please don't. I never liked that. I never was a fan. Honestly, Tekla Aminata, if they can get along. If they can get along. Well, they have so there you go. Look, this is where we're at. Like, what, 3 weeks ahead of or so ahead of All In, and that's the setup that we have. And we're gonna get more matches in, and they're gonna add 1 or 2. I am fairly confident that they're going to be. That was a fire truck. I am fairly confident that they're going to be adding MJF and Mystico this week. My gut says that this is happening. I trust my gut, as many of you know. I put a lot of faith in my gut. I trust my gut. So I'm pretty sure that's what's coming up. There's going to be a lot more interesting stuff to come as well. Look, so far, this show is booked excellently. I don't know how anyone can complain about it. At least from a booking standpoint, a storyline standpoint, all of these top matches feel good. The rest that are going to fill out the card, you can see them being built, being put together so that they make sense for the audience. This was the promotion that people used to say there are no stories. And I've been saying this for weeks and months at this point on the Dynamite review every Thursday. Everything on this show, everything that happens on this show now has a story. I would like once in a while for AEW to just drop a cool match, but they don't anymore. Everything that appears on TV, everything that happens has a connection, has a story, has something to say. The old standbys of AEW has no stories is demonstrably false. Anyone who still clasps onto that has no idea what they're talking about. They don't watch the show. Everything has build, everything has story, and it's all culminating into a show that has some of the best wrestling talent on planet Earth that are going to do the fighting for our entertainment. I don't know what more you could want. But look, this is not going to be the last time we're going to talk about All In. On our way there, we have only just begun, folks. We have only just begun. And it is now time to review CMLL Fantastica Mania Mexico 2025 that happened on June 20, 2025. The big show that featured all the stars from AEW / Ring of Honor and New Japan as well. New Japan Pro Wrestling, of course. Capping off a pretty big week of collaboration as well with AEW and AEW's week in Mexico that is going to be remembered as a huge success. But we're not talking about that. I've already discussed that elsewhere on the Mr. Warren Hayes show universe of reviews and recordings and whatnot. However, the show here, the Fantastica Mania, that's what we're going to focus on. We're gonna get right into the show that of course took place in Arena Mexico. And look, the place looked packed again. Unfortunately, like, I'm not able to get any real data on how many people were present. I mean, the lower bowl was full, and that's the thing. In case you don't know. The lower bowl of Arena Mexico is the one that's tracked by Ticketmaster. That's the one that's really, really tracked, and the rest of the arena, all of the upper sections of Arena Mexico, those are all general admission and are much more difficult to pinpoint, essentially. So it looked like a really packed house, as they usually have on Friday evenings, and maybe they had even a little more. Maybe there was a little more interest per usual because all of the partners, the triumvirate. Well, I mean, I guess you could add Ring of Honor in there. Do you add Ring of Honor in there? Like, I feel the triumvirate of partnerships, right, is CMLL, AEW, New Japan, and Ring of Honor. Sure, but Ring of Honor is also it's a subsidiary, I guess, of AEW, so it's not like its own entity, right? And MLW is always cast aside on this. MLW had their show in Arena Mexico a couple of weeks ago, right? Maybe a month at this point. So they're happy, but they're not included in this, like, this trinity, this trinity of promotional sharing. They're not they're excluded from this, obviously, even though CMLL holds apparently an extremely solid relationship with Major League Wrestling. Don't get me wrong. In these circumstances, it doesn't seem like they're very welcome. Or look, anyway, it just, it's the kind of thing that I think about maybe too much, and ultimately doesn't mean much. I wasn't brokenhearted over the idea of MLW not being there. I'm just saying, I'm just pointing something out. But look, I thought this was a pretty good show. I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought the back end of the show really delivered, which is, oftentimes the case in these Friday night shows over in Arena Mexico. You'll get some really solid stuff at the towards the top of the card. And then, whatever happens at the bottom, is what it is. But it was a longer show. We got a full extra hour because we had, I didn't count this beforehand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 matches. Is that correct? Let me recount again because math is not my strength. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 matches. And, a lot of us were wondering, oh, well, none of these matches are going to have time, because they're cramming 9 matches into the usual window. None of them will have time. Well, they fixed that by adding an extra hour to the show, which did really fix everything, quite honestly. Yeah, a terrific show of Lucha Libre, and all the partners getting some time to shine. I thought this was really good. And look, let's get right into it instead of just like sitting around saying, oh, it was really good, it was really good, it was really good. Let's get into it. I don't know how many pithy thoughts I'm really going to have. There's a couple of points I do want to hit on. I have a couple of things here, but there's a lot of, even the really good matches, I don't have many thoughts other than this was terrific kind of thing. Which happens a lot when I watch when I watch Lucha Libre, I'm like, this was terrific. This was really, really good, and that's all there is to it. Really, that's really all there is to it. Look, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with the main event and work our way down the card. And by doing that, you're going to get the example right off the bat of what I mean when Bandito and Hologram defeated the Sky Team duo of Místico and Máscara Dorada, which came to, I'm sure, a bit of a surprise to everyone. And look, this is a match where everyone is just doing really cool shit. Like, they're just going around doing some really good shit. And I got really invested real early into this match when Hologram and Místico started exchanging some moves back and forth at the very, very, like, early on in the match. Maybe not at the very, very start, but early on in the match. And they were so good. Like, they had the chemistry, the flow, everything was there. And I was like, okay, this really does rock what I'm watching right now. And then Bandito does this great, satellite Rana thing where he's just going around the world. He's doing it on Máscara Dorada. We get a bunch of dives, of course. Místico does his spinning dive, a Fosbury flop by Máscara Dorada. That actually friendly fires Místico. He sort of, instead of landing on whoever was his intended target, I don't think the camera caught it, but he hits Místico himself. Hologram does this incredible springboard acai moonsault, like just absolutely fantastic. And Bandito moonsaults off of the post, which again, just tremendous stuff, of course, to the floor. Everyone is looking absolutely fantastic. We're getting stereo 450s by Máscara Dorada and Bandito. Oh yeah, that are doing. They're both working over their opponents at the same time, and they're landing these big moves at the same time, and they're doing pump kicks. Both guys go down. Portal bomb by a Hologram on Máscara Dorada. Finally, Hologram lands the portal bomb on Máscara Dorada to eliminate him from the match, and then Místico does his best to fight off the double teams from Hologram and Bandito. But it all comes to an end when Bandito rolls through a La Mística attempt, and Crucifix pins Místico for the win, who also got his shoulder up at the very last, like immediately after 3. Yeah, and that, my friends, whenever you see that happen in pro wrestling, that is the sign of an expert worker. Sure, he lost the match, right? Today, I have been bested by my adversaries, right? But when the shoulder goes down on 3, okay, the shoulder goes down on 3, and immediately after he pulls his shoulder up, that's where it's like, yeah, it's not exactly a satisfying victory, right? It's not exact. And Místico is nothing if not a terrific worker on that front. He knows what he's doing. So, I got a good chortle out of that. I enjoyed that tremendously. And as I enjoyed this match quite a bit, I thought it was terrific. I'm teetering between, you know what, we're going to do this. I think a 4.25 is where I'm going to go with this one. 4.25 stars on this one for my dopey little ratings. And yeah, look, this was terrific. It was great. It was a blast to watch. And then after the match, they set up this angle. Místico gets a microphone and essentially challenges Bandito to a one-on-one match next week in Arena Mexico, and Bandito accepts the challenge. So we're getting that next week, and I'm particularly excited about it. I found that Bandito all throughout this week has just utterly shined. He has shined brightly through all of his appearances on the CMLL shows. He's clearly gotten himself over with the Arena Mexico crowd. People are into it. People are excited about it, and they're excited about this match. So It also explains at the same time why Místico took the pin here, because he knows he's getting in a tag team match, mind you, but he took the pin nonetheless. And it's very clear that he accepted to do it because he's going to get his win back next week, And here's what I found interesting, particularly for us American wrestling fans. Místico comes out of his match with MJF. He lost. He got kicked in the balls, and in the classic Rudo finish. And MJF won. Then he comes into that happens on Wednesday. Then he comes into this tag team match on the Friday, and he loses again. And I'm like, look, he's taking these L's, and he's going to get a big W at some point, right? A lot of us are still believing that feel, I should say, as opposed to believing. It's not a question of belief, but a lot of us feel that Místico and MJF are going to have a match at All In, which will probably be an apuestas match, a hair versus mask match, most likely. And if Místico is racking up these W's, these L's, I should say, then maybe that means where, because he lost, he won against Max, but it's as they say, a Pyrrhic victory. He didn't, he got stomped on, he got double teamed, whatever. It's not, it's not a glorious victory. So he's going to want to get his heat back. He's going to want MJF to get his comeuppance. And I think that would be a tremendous match to put in at All In Texas. I think I think this is a match that draws in a substantial amount. Let's not put a figure on it, but a substantial amount of Lucha fans. I think this is big enough to get some Lucha Libre fans interested and maybe buy a ticket and come check out the show because of geography, because of where Texas is located. So I think that I kind of feel that's probably where we're going. They could also do the apuestas match later. They could do it in Arena Mexico. They could do it at the Aniversario show later this year, right? That'll be one hell of a build, but they still could do that. But I think they're going to blow it off I think they're going to blow it off at All In, and that's why Místico's been maybe looking a little, been taking a couple of L's here, because he knows he's getting everything back, and he's going to get a big scalp, literally, by shaving MJF's head bald, which is going to be a sight to see, and I have no doubt Max is going to be super into that. Yeah, so just a thought like that on the side, but tremendous match. I thought this was a lot of fun, a great main event to close out the show. Not my favorite match of the show, and probably there's a chance that my favorite match of the show might surprise you. It might. Actually, I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised at how much I liked it. Well, but we'll get there. We'll get there. This was fantastic. I thought it was a blast. Ricochet defeated Volador Jr. Volador Jr. here kind of had to play the technical role here. He's typically a Rudo in the regular environment, but he kind of had to dial it down because, boy, oh boy, Ricochet was full-on court press being the heel here. There was no really room to maneuver, and they really didn't do the, two sneaky heels doing this. No, Volador ended up adopting more of a technico side here, which I think kind of worked to the detriment of the match. I don't think it was as interesting as it could have been. The match overall was very good, don't get me wrong. And Ricochet it kind of felt like a showcase for Ricochet, because he's doing all sorts of incredible athletic moves. He's landing on his feet after eating a top rope Frankensteiner by Volador. He's doing the flying tiger space drop. He's really flexing his muscles. He's really going out there and having a match in Arena Mexico with another great high flyer that, not that they were incompatible. I just think, this match missed a gear. They only had 10 minutes too. If you had decided to make this a lightning match, that would have been fine. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was good for what it was. Ricochet gets a sneaky low blow in that the ref doesn't see and ends the match with the spirit gun. Extremely solid match and excellent work by Ricochet. But I think myself and probably a lot of other people were expecting a little more out of this. And look, I don't know if they were cut for time. I don't know because there was ceremony throughout the match as well. Like they had before the Yota Tsuji Yota Ultimo Guerrero match. They had like the ambassador of Japan in Mexico come out to say a few words. Maybe he went long. Because when they passed the mic back over to Salvador Luteroth, he kept it super quick. It's like in and out, we're gone. So maybe the Japanese ambassador cut into Ricochet and Volador's time here. But look, nonetheless, I enjoyed it. I thought this was excellent work again by Ricochet, but it truly was a showcase for him. I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I also think that I think that Volador not working Rudo, I think it also hurt the match, but I understand, Lucha is a little different. They don't do the shades of gray stuff really. You got the good guys and the bad guys, right? I understand that he felt like he had to work that way. It might have been a little more interesting if not, but this was good. And I gotta say, for all of the typical losers, who say that, Ricochet is a failure, couldn't cut it in WWE, he's out there in the minor leagues and whatnot. This guy is absolutely gobbling up every moment that he's been wrestling since leaving WWE. He has been enchanted, enthralled, thrilled, and you could see it in his face again in Arena Mexico. He's like, to him, he's like, holy shit, dude, I'm wrestling in Arena Mexico right now. I'm ready to go all out here and just put on a great show. And he's been enjoying himself. Look, he's likely made a shit ton of money already with WWE. And for all intents and purposes, he seems to have been very smart with his money at the same time. We're not in the era of wrestlers, blowing all of their money on pills and blow anymore. He legitimately seems to have been very smart with his money and everything he's been doing since leaving the company. And especially since finding his footing as this excellent heel has been tremendous. And he's been tremendous and he looks and feels like a completely other man. Can you imagine? Like, just think about, the Ricochet who'd come out on Monday Night Raw or whatever, and his entrance theme would begin with an actual Ricochet bullet sound because Vince McMahon, right? Think about that guy. No personality, just smiles. And think about this guy here. Two completely different worlds. Two completely different men. But they are the same men. Then we had Neon defeating Kevin Knight in a lightning match. We actually had a lightning match here. This was all right, but not great. I felt like both guys had trouble connecting with each other. It was very weird. I like Neon tremendously. I think Neon has an extremely bright future, but Neon has off nights, and I would assume this was an off night. But you know what? Kevin Knight had an off night. Kevin Knight was flubbing spots. He was blowing spots. There's a spot they set up on the ramp to do a slingshot sunset bomb, I guess, and Kevin Knight is doing it, and he blows it. He just blows it. Both of these guys were off their game. Both of these guys were absolutely 100% off their game in this encounter. Neon wins with an inverted moonsault, though. That shit rules. I guess that's what you'd call it, right? An inverted moonsault. And Neon does his double hop moonsault, with ease again, which is one of the most spectacular moves in pro wrestling. If only because of the complete and utter lack of effort that it takes for him to do it. It's just outstanding. Look, chalk it up to the guys maybe don't have great chemistry. I even felt throughout the match, they were a step behind each other. But overall, like, the result is not disastrous, but it's also not great. It's passable. I give it the good old 3, the good old flat 3 on this one. Could have been higher if the work had been tighter. Definitely would have been higher if the work had been snappier and faster. But listen, it's too late now. It's too late now. 3 stars for me. Then we had the trios match where Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, and Titan teamed up as LIJ effectively for the last time ever to defeat the United Empire trio of Francesco Akira, Templario, and TJP. After everything that happened with TJP and Jeff Cobb and the United Empire and whatnot, it is hilarious that he is still considered part of the group. It is hilarious, and he comes out without a single speck of green or gold on his gear, on his entrance gear. And this is a guy who was decked out, right? He'd be flying the banner. He'd have it all. You kind of wonder how awkward it gets, I'm assuming Templario is, he's the new guy in. He's the new guy in, and the rest of the friend group had been fighting, right? But he arrived just a little bit before the friend group started fighting. So he doesn't know all the drama. He doesn't know, who likes who and whatnot. He's just happy to be there. He's like, hey guys, thanks for inviting me into the friend chat, He's just happy, happy to be there. He's got some opportunities. Hey, I'm aligned with these dudes in New Japan. And then he realizes, oh shit, what did I just step into? What the fuck did I just step into here? So he's probably like, okay, hey, how you doing, TJP? I have nothing to do with what's been going on, right? Whereas Francesco Akira, he's probably very deep in it, and he was his tag team partner for a long time, so it's probably a little there has to be some awkwardness there. Yeah, look, TJP and Templario, they're strong tag team champions, right? And New Japan strong tag team champions, not strong tag team champions. The New Japan strong tag team champions. So they have to coexist. But yeah, what was the last show I reviewed? The last USA show. I don't remember what I have Resurgence. Was that the one? The one where they won the titles against the World Class Wrecking Crew, and Templario and TJP come into the ring, and they are they were barely acknowledging each other. So I'm sitting here saying, Templario is probably not involved, but he doesn't have to be involved to feel awkward about it. Like he's probably been briefed at this point. Someone has told him, what's going on, or at least he read about shit on the internet, whatever. And he's like, oh, so this guy doesn't want to be in the group. Maybe TJP outright told him, like, look, this is just a payday for me. I don't want to be in this stupid group anymore, but the company won't book me out of it. And Templario's here. I just want to wrestle. I just want more bookings, pal. Don't ruin this for me, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, look, this is exactly what you would imagine this would be. I mean, it's one of these classic, New Japan, LIJ trios matches, which have always been highlights on every undercard that they've been on forever. And it's honestly one of the things I'm going to miss the most out of the group, because their trios matches have always been the trios matches that they've put on have always been blasts. So that's going to be a bit of a disappointment. United Empire gets some great triple team offense though throughout this match. Titan is shining in this match. Of course, he's in Arena Mexico, so he's getting a lot of the spotlight here, and everyone's diving at some point in LIJ. Senton Atomico by Templario, Atopic on Hilo by Shingo, Top Rope Senton by Hiromu, all to the floor, of course. Templario does this great outside in somersault slam, I guess you'd call it. It was fantastic. The United Empire guys do some dives as well, but at the end, all 3 of the LIJ guys are in the ring, set up each individually one guy from from United Empire to take the finish, their finish, and they all land them at the same time. Except for Shingo, who's struggling to get, he finished with Made in Japan, right? He finished with Made in Japan, not the and not with the Last of the Dragon. And I don't know if he did Made in Japan because he couldn't lift Akira. Like, he struggled. He and Akira struggled to make it happen. So he ended it with Made in Japan, and well, it is what it is at this point. He got off while Titan and Hiromu got their moves off, in perfect synchronicity. Shingo dragged along a bit. Fun. It was fun. It was a good match. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was very good, in fact. And then at the end, Yota Tsuji comes out, to the ring to do one last fist bump, and Titan does the roll call, and effectively speaking, from this point on, that's the end of Los Ingobernables de Japón. Like, we're done with LIJ moving forward here until Naito gets his financial backer to found LIJW or whatever. Probably not LIJ. That's probably a trademark. That's probably a New Japan trademark, right? It has to be. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Yota, aka Yota Tsuji, defeated Ultimo Guerrero by a disqualification, though. We need to circle that. Of course, Yota Tsuji is plain old Yota in Mexico. That was his excursion name. So he visits back Mexico. He uses his old excursion name, but it's still very much the same guy. No, I'm correcting myself. This is not very much the same guy. Here's the thing. Here's what we had in this situation here. We had Yota Tsuji, who was alive and fired up. You have Ultimo Guerrero, who is the MLW, what is it? The middleweight champion. I think that's what it is. Their middleweight champion. And he's been so happy. He's been so proud to have this fucking singles title. All throughout this week, every time Ultimo Guerrero has been wrestling, all throughout the week that just passed in Japan, he was alive. He was into it. He was putting on the working boots every fucking night. And this is a guy, this is an older guy. This is a guy who picks his spots. He's like, he's entitled to that, whatever. But every night that I watched him, from the Tuesday show all the way to this Friday, he has been nothing but into it, excited. It's dynamic. This title, winning this MLW middleweight title, has absolutely reignited his love for what he does. And this translated into giving us a match here, which was hard-hitting, strong, that had all the makings of just this great fucking epic. And it came out of nowhere so hard for me because of the participants, because Ultimo Guerrero, you're kind of he comes in, he raises the roof, and you're kind of okay, well, you never know what level of effort you're going to get with him. And Yota Tsuji, who, if you listen enough to my other reviews and, the podcast and whatnot, how I feel about Yota. Great charisma. I think he's a vibes guy because I don't think he's a guy who can have consistently great matches. He's a guy who kind of goes through maybe some motions, he's, stoic and whatnot. And it's it doesn't always translate well. Here, he's going around, he's doing flips, he's diving, he's being super physical. He is slapping the shit out of Ultimo Guerrero in this match. And Guerrero, he's fighting back. He's getting the big chops in. He's doing avalanche gourd busters that Yota is just fine taking out, right? And the people are into it. The people are feeling this energy. And Yoda emoting to the crowd, getting the crowd involved. I'm sitting there and I'm watching. Where is this guy in Japan? I want this guy all the time in Japan. What are the parameters in which Yota Tsuji has to function once he steps into a New Japan ring that keeps him from being Yota? Look, I will take Yota any day of the week over Yota Tsuji, if that makes sense, and I think it does. If you've been following what I'm saying, I think it makes a lot of sense. And they're doing and it's a classic lucha match where they're, you've got the feeling out period. You're doing, they're doing some high speed, some dives, for the first like half of the match, and then the back half, they're just dropping each other. They're doing power bombs and avalanche power bombs. There's Falcon arrows. There's, these wild suplexes that Ultimo Guerrero's doing, and people, and they're kicking out, and the crowd is insane. The crowd is up on their feet. They're cheering for every kick out. They are so, and the Arena Mexico crowd makes this match even better. It's one of these matches where the crowd is just elevating this match and the guys are into it. And Ultimo Guerrero at some point, he's like, fuck this, kicks him right in the nuts. Just gives him a big old swing and lands his boot right in the no-nos. And flagrant foul, referee calls the match, Yota wins. But again, another Pyrrhic victory and another, a great Rudo finish. Which really, the crowd was molten for the decision. They hated it. Of course. It was so well done. Like, everything in this match ruled. It rocked and it rolled. And I'm going to be the high man on this. I love this match so much. Yeah, seeing Ultimo Guerrero being a better version of his recent self, right? And Yota Tsuji showing that he has the material to be better, to be a guy, to be exciting and dynamic. He's got it. He just showed it. So why doesn't that translate? If anything, it's going to make me grimace even more at New Japan Yota Tsuji when he starts wrestling his patterns again. Because I'm going to be like, fuck this. This guy can do so much better. I have seen it. I saw it with Gabe Kidd, but I saw an entirely different way of doing it with Ultimo Guerrero here. I'm the high man on this. This is a 4.5 star match for me. I thought this was fantastic. It's my favorite match of the show. And there's probably going to be some people who are going to calm the fuck down, Warren. Don't tell me to fuck down. Don't tell me to calm the fuck down. I can fuck down. I can fuck down with the best of them. But I will not calm the fuck down. What is, Warren, to fuck down? Listen, all you need to know is that if you tell me to fuck down, I'm going to fuck down and you're going to get fucked down like you have never been fucked down before. Go watch the match. It's absolutely fantastic. I am 100% okay with me being the high man on this, the very, very high man. But this was such a fun match. And, a lot of you know I like it when my matches get really physical and gritty. And there was a lot of this there was a lot of that in this match. So, did pull on my heartstrings. But between Ultimo Guerrero pulling out this incredible performance and Yota Tsuji just proving that he can be a guy, he can be a worker, a high-level worker, instead of, the stoic, ambling man that he is during his matches. It's enough to elevate this match for me, plus the crowd, plus the action. My favorite match of the show. Mercedes Moné defeated La Catalina to retain the CMLL World Women's Championship. I thought this was good. I thought this was very good, actually. Good exchange between the two, actually, to start things off until Mercedes meteoras off the apron. She gets a good control segment as well throughout this match, like a really, really extensive control segment until like Catalina lands a pedigree on the apron. All right. But, look, Mercedes is in control of this match. Catalina gets her hope spots in, but Mercedes stays in control. La Catalina does goes for a gory bomb, but Mercedes escapes. She goes for a gory bomb. Mercedes escapes to try to land the statement maker, and La Catalina gets out of that. We get the tombstone lung blower spot by Mercedes, a Busaiku knee by La Catalina, who does also a one-winged angel. Wonder if is Kenny Omega the kind of guy who needs you to ask him permission for his moves? Do you think he has to call him up like he's Manami Toyota? You got to call him up just to make sure you can use the move. Anyway, she did a one-winged angel. Mercedes kicks out, and Monet very shortly thereafter locks in the statement maker. I can never remember the name. Statement maker for the win. This was very good. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. It was a tremendous match and probably one of the best matches I've seen La Catalina have in a long time. I look at this, and I wonder how long do we think La Catalina has left in CMLL? And I'm just I think Tony Khan has taken a liking to her. She's done some Ring of Honor shots. And then he books this match here for Mercedes on the Friday. Well, I say he books it. They booked the match, but I'm sure like Tony was like, yeah, look, Catalina's great. I'd like to see her, see her with one of the high level women of his women's division. And I think that's very fascinating. I think she'd be a good addition. I'm not calling for AEW to start poaching CMLL talent, but I think it's fair to assume that Catalina's objectives of wrestling again on American television are fairly clear. Because I say again, because let's not forget she was in WWE for a cup of coffee, sure, but she was in WWE for a while. Maybe this, I would assume, and I would think that her aspirations are still very much geared to getting back into American wrestling, being back on American TV. That's fair. And look, with this idea of maybe getting some double contracts, between CMLL and AEW. Tyler Forness of The Good, the Bad, and the Hungry and we talked about it this past weekend when he popped in for a live stream. We talked about this idea of double contracts as a way for CMLL to be able to offer better money to their wrestlers without losing them outright to WWE. If CMLL were to sign double contracts with AEW with their talent, well, they're not losing access to that talent, which would be the case with WWE. With CMLL, they would at the very least be able, with AEW, CMLL would still have access to the talent. And, they can negotiate dates and appearances and all that stuff, right? So, is it that type of situation? Could that be something that I think she could be someone who could benefit from that type of situation is what I'm saying. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. This is pure speculation, of course. But there you go. Then we had the team of Magnus and Rugido, along with Defunto and Zandokan Jr., defeating the team of Crew, so of course, Action Andretti and Leo Rush, alongside Rocky Romero and Robbie X in an 8-man tag match, which was pretty good. I enjoyed it. 3 3/4 stars. I don't have many notes here. Very fun, high-flying match. Dynamic pace, great moves. Leo Rush fits in like a glove in CMLL. I love the fact that he looks like, I can't remember the audience had been chanting at him that he looks like, what was the guy? Camorli. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm sorry. But he looks like a Mexican pop singer. And people were chanting that at him. I think it was on Tuesday and whenever he appeared on in Arena Mexico. So they had that singer come to the ring with a t-shirt that reads "Not Leo Rush," and he gets into the ring with Leo Rush, and they're both like staring at each other. And you know what? They do kind of look like each other. Like it's kind of weird. Like it's not perfect clones, but they same stature, same hair, same. You're like, okay, I can absolutely see it. And they're both staring at each other. You know, they're doing the Superman meme, the Spider-Man meme with each other. What was the guy's name? Kalimba. Kalimba is the guy's name. Let's give some respect to him. Kalimba is the name of the guy. And yeah, he's a singer, a recording artist. I'm just looking at this right now on the internet. There are a bunch of sites who now have Not Leo Rush t-shirts set up, right? They're all, of course, right? There's a bunch that says Not Leo Rush. Why would you do that? The guy just took a white t-shirt and put a permanent marker. He took a Sharpie and wrote Not Leo Rush on it. Just do it yourself. I could do it with this t-shirt here, but I won't because I think you will not mistake me for Leo Rush. I think the differences are pretty clear. La Jarochita defeated Thunder Rosa in another match. Very physical. Got a muscle buster in here, which she uses for the win, and which she did with the diving corner kit to finish it off. Right, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that was fun. That was a good match, and I gave it 3.25 stars. How about that? And the show opened up with Red Velvet defeating Kira. I do not remember watching this match. I gave it 2.75 stars. Look, I don't remember this match. I do not remember watching this match. And I'm looking at my notes and I'm taking, and it's like slow. They're both blowing spots. Okay, so I don't remember this match. There's probably good reasons why. It's probably already relegated to memory at this point. But even there, it's not relegated to memory. I can't remember it, right? You remember things in your memory. I think I just deleted it. I think it's just been mind wiped. I've made room for more important things to remember. I don't remember this match at all. But I gave it 2.75 stars according to my notes, which again says they're both blowing spots. It's also slow. Kira power bombs Velvet on the, what did I write here? Kira power bombs Velvet on the rail, which is a good spot, but then wipes out on a dive. Oh yeah, and all of her glitter sort of exploded on the, I remember that. There you go. Fantastica Mania, Mexico. I shouldn't do that. Mexico. Sound like a complete and utter gringo. 2025. This was, look, I thought this was a fantastic show. More than recommended for you to go check out. There's a lot of great stuff. I think you can't go wrong with the main event. And honestly, go watch Yota Tsuji versus Ultimo Guerrero, which is the wildest thing I could say. But again, maybe I'm completely delusional at the same time, but I love that fucking match. And this was a good show to cap off a great week of collaborations between the three partners. So there you have it. Fantastica Mania, Mexico 2025. It's good. And now we are going to review Stardom The Conversion 2025, which took place in Tokyo, Japan at the Yoyogi National Stadium Gymnasium. Number 2. There were 2,521 people in attendance for this show, which, you know, again, a sign that Stardom is doing well. This is a nice little house considering the venue. But there's not much to really dig into here, other than Stardom has been doing very well over the past few months. They feel very, very hot, and the shows overall have been drawing well. I think that this era where in this new era where they have lost like top women like Mayu Iwatani and Tam Nakano, I don't think that they're suffering all that much, because lo and behold, this company has decided to focus on new talent, on new faces, and elevating other people, as opposed, well, because they have to, and they had actually started doing that. Saya Kamatani is not just like some overnight thing that they've decided to strap a rocket pack to and just hope that she catches on. This was well plotted out and planned, and they've got other. You can tell that there's other pots simmering on the fire right now. So go figure. Go figure. You move on to your younger talent that people seem to like, and wow, people will buy tickets people will buy tickets for your show. People will talk about them and review them positively online. There will be buzz. Isn't that a novel idea? Gee willikers, they must have some real geniuses there at Bushiroad. If only other Bushiroad companies could. Anywho, it's not even Bushiroad, come to think of it. Like, it's actually New Japan that, like, the way it's structured, Stardom is a subsidiary of New Japan, which is a subsidiary of Bushiroad. Why can't, anyway. Why can't New Japan just like get its own act together? This is a conversation we should have in another moment, because I want to talk about this show. The show, which, from what a lot of Stardom fans feel like, it's always like this. It's always like a pivot moment, right? Where a whole bunch of things shift and realign, and basically setting the stage for the 5-star Grand Prix that happens over the course of the summer. Now, I don't know if this show truly succeeded in doing that. I think there's two particular events in the show that we'll get to that do create new directions, new ideas, or whatever term you want to use on that front. But it's also a show that I found spun its wheels quite a bit. I don't know if this was a all that great a show. I don't think here, let's just draw a line in the sand. This was not a great show. The undercard, like the first half before the intermission, woof. There was a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that happened that I really just was super excited for it to end, or you'd get meaningful things that had some significance, but you felt was just like pushed away. Nevertheless, you get to the business end of the card, and then things start to deliver, both in ring and in these aforementioned, events that occur. And the result is a show which is overall a mixed bag, where you have a very tedious undercard. And I want to make something clear. I didn't think the wrestling was bad. I think the work overall was there. It's just everything started blending together. That was my main issue with the undercard, is that everything started blending together so much, and there was nothing that felt really meaningful. And the wrestlers on the undercard that I really liked, that I felt were going to help elevate the show, did not. I really wondered what the hell was going on, and was kind of excited for it to move on so we could get to the big matches on the show, which is maybe not necessarily the best thing. I think overall the undercard of this show is completely forgettable, entirely skippable. And that ultimately is my main issue, is that the undercard just felt like it felt like filler. It felt like the things that should matter failed to make us care or went in some extremely weird directions. You know, like, for instance, you have Amy Sarai. I hope I'm pronouncing that. I never quite know how to pronounce her name. She returned. She returned after, I believe, she was out injured for a while. She had been out of commission for she had ACL issues, and she's been out for easily a year, if not more. So there were a lot of people who were excited for her return, and they threw it into this 8-woman tag, I should say, against the hate faction, right? So, you've got some things going on, but ultimately what's going to happen here? You're going to get a bunch of interference and fucking nonsense that's just going to bury the return of Sarai and doesn't make it feel necessarily special, and Saya Kamitani ends up pinning her being Sarai, to win the match. And the question and this is the question basically that permeates the entire undercard, where I'm like, okay, so like sometimes I feel, this is in pro wrestling in general, I feel like we, or bookers I should say, as opposed to we, tend to overthink a lot of things. They tend to really, really overthink storylines and angles, where they're like, well, what is it? We should probably go with this decision. But if we went with this decision, the fans won't expect it. And, and they're always trying to, sometimes finding a way to quote unquote swerve the fans is not necessarily the ticket to your success. It's not always that shocking or that surprising, or more importantly, that intriguing in the aftermath. Outside of just shrugging my shoulders and saying to myself, well, I guess they need something for Kamitani to do, because right now she doesn't have a clear opponent. Is Sarai the person? Is she the woman to do it? I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it works. I don't think anyone sees Amy Sarai ending up with the big red belt. I don't think that's necessarily something that people are pointing at and going, yeah, absolutely, this is 100% going to happen. But it gives them something to do. But couldn't you have achieved the same situation with Sarai winning the match for her team by pinning Kamitani, which would have been a lot more interesting? I don't know what they were trying to do here. I really don't understand what the ultimate goal here was in this match. So as I was using this as an example to sort of portray how I felt about the majority of this card, is just stuff happening and I don't care. Stuff happening and Stardom is not successfully making me care about what was happening. And it's not always storyline reasons. We've got matches in here, right? Where you've got BMI 2000 versus FWC, right? Which was an extremely frustrating match to watch. I don't know what Hazuki was absent for the majority of the match. Like, she was not involved, to the point where I'm wondering, did she get hurt? Is she hurt? What is she doing? Essentially, Koguma was like eating shit by Tora and Raka for the entirety of the match, and then they do the usual hate nonsense. I came this close to saying House of Torture. But they do the usual hate nonsense, and I'm just sitting there shrugging my shoulders and wondering what the hell is going on. And I understand the objective was for Tora and Raka as a tag team to get this big definitive win over FWC, but it kind of felt like FWC doesn't care. And yeah, I've heard scuttlebutt amongst the Joshi faithful that Hazuki and Koguma, they might have aspirations outside of Stardom. And when I'm saying aspirations outside of Stardom, I'm not talking, oh, they're going to go to AEW or whatever, nothing like that. But they do want to, they want to freelance. And I'm like, well, okay, go. Like, if this is what's going to happen, I don't know if they were checked out. I don't know if the booking of the match made them checked out. Maybe just got them in a mood where they were like, okay, no, we're done here. We're not giving the effort necessary because, they don't care about us. Look at what they're doing here. They're going to book us into oblivion. And the thing is that I really like Hazuki. I really, really like Hazuki. I think BMI 2000 are a really fun, ass-kicking, super heelish tag team. I really, they're a throwback. I get it. I understand what they're doing. They're a complete throwback. And I appreciate, like, I should have liked this match a lot more than I did, but they didn't give me any reasons to like it. And that's the story of this undercard. And again, it's not as if the work was unacceptable. I was going to say inacceptable, which is a Frenchism. You say inacceptable in French, I-N, but in English it's U-N, unacceptable. It's not inacceptable. No, it can't be. No, I'm thinking out loud. No, you can't say inacceptable. It's unacceptable, and it's inacceptable in French. And sometimes my brain does that. Just switches between the French and the English, and you as the viewer or listener have to deal with it. And I have to deal with it every day because I'm constantly in my head. The idea though is that for this undercard remains, it's the work is not unacceptable. It's just passionless. It's just happening. There's matches here that I'm like, why is this going so long? And the moments where you feel something could make you feel ends up not making you feel anything. I saw Raiza Sarah beat the shit out of Hanako, and it's such a slow affair. I'm just sitting, and look, I understand Raiza Sarah is retiring, right? This year, I believe. So, she's on her own retirement tour, and that, I can appreciate that. But there's, I don't know, like the sit down exchange that they had was where they were trading strikes and kicks with one another. That was cool. I enjoyed that. That's right up my alley. But everything else was just like, I don't know what was going on, and it was a little tedious. Good work overall. Just it didn't make me feel anything. It didn't make me feel anything. And this and the thing is that I'm talking about the majority of the show. I am 2 hours in once this undercard is done, and I'm going, woof. I hope these top 3 matches give me something to chew on, because this is going to be the worst review of all fucking time. Thankfully, though, we do have some good material to dig into, and let's go ahead. Let's go all the way to the top of the card and do as I usually like to do, which is to break down from the top all the way back to the bottom. And we are going to kick this off. Then that means with Sari defeating Shuri to become the new IWGP Women's Champion. I thought this match was absolutely remarkable. Okay. A couple of months ago, I believe it was in February. Was it in February or was it in March? Bear with me here. Just a few months ago, earlier this year, Sari and Shuri had a match in the main event of a Sariism show. It was indeed in March at the Sariism 7 show. They closed out the show with an incredible fight that went the distance, went to a double count out, and it absolutely rocked. It was an absolutely tremendous match. I was so excited at the prospect because they finished this match and they were still pissed off at each other. We weren't sitting around in the ring shaking hands, patting each other on the back. No, Sareee and Shuri were two alpha females here. And they're like, no, I'm not done with you. And whatever they were saying in Japanese sounded nasty. You could tell there was like some vitriol in there. And they were like, we're going to do this again. Shuri sort of storms off. She's mad. She's mad as hell. So they established that these two people don't get along. These two wrestlers are not on the same page. They don't like each other. So this carried into this match here. And yes, the match was for a title, was for the IWGP Women's title, but there was something a little more personal. There was something of a vendetta here. Sareee has this personality quirk about her wherever she goes, where she's very confrontational, which is a good trait to have, I guess, when you're a pro wrestler. But like, she just likes to pick fights with everyone. That's all she loves to do. And she was ready for another fight with Shuri, and Shuri was ready for her too. This match starts off, they're doing the grappling, they're doing the groundwork, but it's so rugged. And that, I think that's the perfect word for it. It's not like this easy breezy, we're transitioning in and out of moves type of thing, where when you see a good Ring of Honor Pure match, for instance, right? Where the guys are like, they're swimming in and out of each other's moves. No. Here, they're trying to lock each other up into shit. And the other wrestler is doing their best to keep that from happening. Like, there's resistance, there's pushback. We're not just letting shit happen. I love the start to this match. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. And then it only got more rugged. I guess now we can start talking about brutal, because they start trading strikes with each other. And let me tell you, Shuri, she decided that she was kicking. Like, there's more than a couple of times here, like that these were bordering on being shoot kicks. Let's put it that way. Like, the way she was delivering them, they were still working kicks, but she was adding a little stank on each delivery. We really were. I guess we can 100% say that she was working quite snug, and Sareee didn't have any issues with that, because she was like, I can deliver back just as harshly. That's not a problem. And she did. And she's throwing the headbutts and just going crazy. And then they're dropping each other with drivers and suplexes and the like. And that leads us to another sequence where they're just tying each other up into knots and trying to get the other wrestler to submit, which is a callback, unquestionably, to their match in March, where that was the crux of the entire match. Because in their previous encounter, Shuri has Sareee like wrapped up in submissions, and Sareee is struggling to get out. And I absolutely love that from that match, where the struggle for Sareee to break out of this painful hold in which she was in was excruciating and long, and she did everything in her power to reach the ropes to break up the pin. Now we get a little bit of that, but Sareee sees it coming and she's ready, and she gives Shuri a little bit of her own medicine where she's able to do that to her, but Shuri is on top of her game, and she's transitioning in and out of arm bars and leg bars, and at some point late in the match has her all twisted up into this one. She has her all twisted up in one sequence where Saree's legs are trapped, and her arms are trapped, and even her head is like caught between Shuri's legs in a crazy ass hole that looked absolutely uncomfortable. They made me believe that they really hate each other, that they can't stand one another. Maybe there is a little bit of that. I don't know. And who cares? Because what they delivered was what I wanted to see. Just two pro wrestlers who were incapable of seeing eye to eye. And it all comes to an end when Shuri runs into an exploder suplex, and Sareee then wins with the with her wrist lock Uranagi thing, I believe. That's how she got the win and becomes the new IWGP Women's World Champion. Just an absolutely terrific, excellent main event. My main quibble is that I feel like they missed the peak on this match. I thought it went just a little too long. Could have focused a little bit more. They had started doing a lot of leg work at first, and they kind of abandoned that, both in strategy and in selling, and but that I can overlook maybe more than missing the peak. And I think this is what's going to keep me from going full 5 stars on it. I am going to give it 4 3/4 stars though. That's how much I love this match. Look, just like their previous match, another 4 3/4, just absolutely a remarkable way to finish the show. And what a breath of fresh air it was too, just to finish the show on such a high note, for all the reasons that I spoke about earlier regarding the undercard. Excellent work, just absolutely excellent work. All right, next, let's move on. We're going to talk about the no disqualification 8-woman tag team match where the Mi Vida Loca team of Suzu Suzuki, Rina Yamashita, Itsuki Aoki, and Akira Kurugane defeated the Neo Genesis team of Starlight Kid, Azumi Meisera, and Miyu Amasaki. I got to tell you, I love the Mi Vida Loca stable. I think, or unit as they're more typically called. I think it's phenomenal, actually. I think they're a terrific group altogether. Bunch of, violent, fearless ass kickers. Sometimes you kind of need that in Joshi, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but sometimes you do need a team like this, people like this who are less concerned about doing, the high flying stuff and, the idol related mannerisms and things like that, and are just going to come in and whoop some ass. And I think Suzu Suzuki's group here is a good counterbalance to everything, not everything else in the promotion, but a lot of the overall Stardom presentation, which I don't have personally an issue with. I just like variety. It's not a question of whether or not, the frilly skirts. No, it doesn't bother me. Like, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I just like variety. I just like to see different types of wrestling happening on a show. When I feel like it's always the same type of genre, I get bored, or it loses my interest. Let's put it that way. So they really stand out, and I think they're a great addition to. I think they're a great addition to the roster, and what they bring to the table is fantastic. I thought this match was fine, though. I can't sit here and say, "Oh yeah, this match was bonkers," and it really wasn't. The no DQ stip was. We understood why we decided to go no DQ with it very quickly, because there was some plunder. It wasn't like it was mostly chair usage. Thank God it wasn't like a hate match, because that would have been something else. But they mostly were using chairs as an indicator to the plunder, and there were some good spots, and the idea you could see the very difference that I was just speaking about in the match, where the Mi Vida Loca girls were absolutely like overpowering the Neo Genesis girls for, very obvious reasons: stature, size, just overall strength. They had the strength and power advantage. But overall, look, the match was good. I don't know. There's not really any massive highlights from the match itself. Of course, there's one thing that happens in the match which is crucial that we're going to talk about in a second. But overall, like, I thought the match went a little too long. I think this is another match that missed its peak and could have been wrapped up a lot sooner. And of course, the big talking point was the debut of Bozilla, who showed up to attack the Neo Genesis crew. Of course, since this was no disqualifications, it was all perfectly legal Cole. And she comes into the ring. She's all masked up. She's got the hoodie, and everything. And she's coming in. She's throwing fools around, only to reveal that it is former Marigold breakout superstar Bozilla. So I guess that run is over as she's joining MVL. We'll call them that, not MVI. MVL, Mi Vida Loca. We'll call them that. She clearly decided to make a jump. She probably didn't see any real possibilities of advancement in Marigold and decided to hit the bricks. Yeah, look, I've seen a lot of talk around it, a lot of speculation. Of course, I don't think, obviously I don't know Bozilla. Neither do you, probably. Maybe you do, and you should never know. You never know who's going to listen, right? I would assume Bozilla's ultimate goal is to work for a North American promotion. I mean, like, that's what most gaijin want, regardless of the promotion that they're in Japan. And I'm not saying like this is that this is a hard and fast rule. I'm just let's paint this picture with me for a second, won't you? Most gaijin have an objective to work in the US, in a US based promotion, and I would assume that Bozilla wanted a little bit of that. Now, did she stick around Marigold for the time she was in because she figured that they were developing a really close relationship with WWE? Maybe. But also, then again, maybe not. Or maybe she's seeing how things are going and she's like, well, there are viable options that are open with AEW, and AEW has this working relationship with New Japan and with Stardom now, so maybe this is a way for me to get some exposure. Yeah, maybe the WWE relationship with Marigold isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe it's not how we imagined it at all, where, most of us were extremely worried that this was going to be WWE's gateway into Japanese wrestling. But when's the last time they collabed on anything? It was the Utami Hayashishita Io Shirai match, which was last year, right? Wasn't that last year? It's been months now since they've done anything together. Maybe that relationship has just gone a little on the sour side. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're not the financiers of Rossy Ogawa's promotion that everyone thought they were. Look, we're just spitballing here, right? And next thing you know, WWE acquires Marigold, and we all have egg on our faces. But for the time being, I think it's pretty safe to assume that that's not the case. So yeah, like if I'm Bozilla, quite honestly. And my goal is to end up on national TV in the United States and make a name for myself. I think the easiest path to that is indeed to work with a partner promotion of AEW who has a very strong opportunity to collaborate on shows in which you will be featured and will be broadcast to a US audience. So, ergo, ergo improving your stock. I haven't seen Bozilla wrestle in a while. Well, no, that's not true. I've seen a few matches in the past couple of months. She's still not perfect in the ring, and I'm not even saying perfect. I'm like, she's still a little wild in the ring. I saw the the power bomb that she drove on Starlight Kid. Like, I understand she's a big lady and she's strong, and she's lifting these 90-pound wrestlers, and it's like nothing to her. Like, she's lifting Starlight Kid and dropping her with a power bomb, which was very high angle. I don't know if you noticed that, and there was a lot of force on it, and nothing disastrous, nothing where you're like, ooh, you're gonna do the meme, ooh, but still harsh enough where I'm like, hey, that's a snug little power bomb there that SLK just took. And I keep hearing that SLK is working through injuries and whatnot. Look, the point being is that Bozilla still isn't a polished product. She's still, her job is to come in and be a brute, and that's what she does, but she does it in a very shoot brute fashion. How about that? Shoot brute fashion, as opposed to working it more. If she comes in and she starts throwing people around, she is throwing people around. So listen, this is very interesting. It's a massive jump. I believe it's the first Marigold to Stardom jump, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a big one because I'm sure Rossi was concocting all sorts of plans that included Bozilla, but she has other plans. She wants to move on and do other things, and that is entirely commendable. But it's a big event. It's a big thing. It's a huge jump. And now she's a part of Stardom. Just around just around 5-star Grand Prix season. I don't know if she's gonna be in the mix. It's gonna be very interesting to see her development here moving forward. Then we had the tag team match for the Goddess of Stardom title, where Hanan and Saya Ida retained their championships by defeating Natsupoi and Saori Anu. People are extremely high on this match, on Cage Match, and I chatted with a few people in the voice, not the voice chats, but the group chat, and people are extremely high on this match, and I liked it, but I really don't see what made this match as good as people are making it. Like right now, I've got Cage Match open here, and it's standing at an 8.34, which is, what, like a 4.25. We're bordering on 4.5 stars. I mean, we're getting around the mid 4s as far as ratings go, according to the Cage Match inmates. And again, like, people in my chats have been extremely high on it, and I like the match. I like Hanan and Saya Ida. I like Saya Ida tremendously. I'm very big on her. Natsupoi, of course, is great. I've grown to appreciate Saori Anu. Well, she's grown on me, just as simple as that. I think she's extremely good. And you see, like, I kind of feel like this wasn't the match where they've shine. I've seen all 4 of these women shine in bigger, better circumstances than this. Of course, bigger, but I've seen them shine more than this is ultimately what I'm trying to say. And it's a good performance by everyone. Natsupoi and Anu dominate the majority of this match. Like, they are completely in control, practically walking the dog with the champions. And the match had a really good pace, but I don't know, maybe I was just rising out of the undercard, and maybe I was sitting there with my arms crossed a little more. Maybe I was a little grumpier. Maybe it's the kind of match where I should sit down and rewatch it and be like, you know what? This was actually quite excellent. kind of thing. They're diving off of the top rope. They're doing all the dives. And then eventually the champions, the champions are trying all of their hope spots, but they're getting immediately cut off. And eventually they do mount their comeback, of course. They do a heart attack. And the final stretch is, there's a bunch of near falls in the final stretch. The crowd is into it. And Hanan gets the win with a trap near fall. Not a trap near fall, a trap pinfall. You don't get a win with a near fall, Warren. And I thought it was a good finish, and I liked it. But you see, look, here's something to consider. Like, one of the things that I really, really appreciated with the main event is that Shuri and Sari beat the piss out of each other so hard that, and the win that Sari had was so definitive. It wasn't a sneak win. It wasn't like, it was so clear, concise, definitive, without any question. I was the better woman. Like, not the better woman tonight, which is always, I was the better woman here tonight. Whereas here, you don't get that kind of closure. And not that I expect that out of all my matches, but it just has a sharp contrast between these two matches here. One finishes with such incredible, with such incredible resolve, I guess. And the tag team match, this one here, ends with, we were able to slip by on this one. And I also understand that was more the story of the match that they were telling too. Like, I understand that there were two completely different stories with look, I'm getting all upset at myself here. I understand that the story they were trying to tell in the tag team match was the challengers have the champions on the ropes. That was the story they were trying to say. Whereas Shuri and Sari was, these are two aces, two top-level world-class athletes beating the absolute shit out of each other for a title, and on top of that, they don't like each other. So I understand these are two different stories. And in the context of the tag team match, well, if Hanan and Ida are struggling throughout the match and Hanan is just able to sneak by a win, well, then I understand. It makes sense. I understand the story and the conclusion, and I don't hate it. It's just, it's very, it sticks out, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah, like I said, everyone is really super high on this match. 3.5 stars for me. I don't know. I'm the low man, probably, maybe. It is what it is, I guess. Let's blow through the undercard. There's a lot of stuff I already talked. I already touched on most of the points about the undercard that I wanted to talk about. So, just really, really quickly, if we're going all the way down, the 8-women tag match where Saya Kamitani, Rina, Momo Watanabe, and Konami defeating Amy Sarai, Kyoka Kotatsu, Lady C, and Rana Yagami. I gave that 2.5 stars. I thought it was the pits. Riza Sarah defeating Hanako. Again, I talked about this one. I gave it, in my notes, I have 3 with a question mark. Kind of like I was saying earlier, the work is fine. The work is there. No issues with that. I'm just completely indifferent about this match, and I guess this is where I stand on it. I guess. Probably. Let's go with 3. It doesn't matter. Natsuko Tora and Ruaka defeating FWC, the FWC team of Hazuki and Koguma. I give that 2 3/4 stars as well. We talked about that at length. The Cosmic Angels trio of Aya Sakura, Saya Kurara, and Yuna Mizumori defeated Emma Mashima, Kyoko Furusawa, and Momo Kogo in the most 3-star affair you could possibly imagine. And Hina defeated Rion in the Future of to retain the Future of Stardom match in a very, very 3-star match. And I didn't watch the pre-show. I think there was, because I think there was a pre-show match that I didn't watch. I know there's one match that I didn't see before the Hanan and Rion match. So there you go. There you go. A very uneven, unbalanced show. One that thankfully had some much more interesting upper card business end matches to save it, because the rest of the show is just it's just so entirely skippable and forgettable. There's nothing else really to go. Look, the main event is absolutely 100% the recommendation. That is the one you have to make time out of your day to go see. And look, just because everyone is so high on it, go watch the Goddess of Stardom title match and tell me how wrong I am, I guess, because everyone is super high on it. I personally am not recommending it. I think it's a fine match, but that's all there is to it. And, you know, if you want to see Bozilla kick things off, I'll go right ahead. It's right there. It's right there too. But the main event is absolutely must watch. It's tremendous. It's great. Saves the show. And well, does it really save the show? Well, it saves the show from being, you know, a complete and utter set of platitudes. How about that? How about that? That's my, there you go. That's my review of Stardom The Conversion 2025. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining me here today. You know, of course, don't forget the like, the rating, the review, all that stuff helps out, as I mentioned earlier. And hey, why don't you subscribe here on the YouTube channel or on your podcast app? You know, there's always some good stuff coming your way if you follow the Mr. Warren Hayes just about everywhere. On all the media devices. Like tomorrow, Thursday, I will be back with an AEW Dynamite review as we continue to set things up for the big All In show coming up in a couple of weeks. So that'll be exciting. But then join me on Blue Sky as well at MrWarrenHayes.show. Would love to chit chat with you over there and share some thoughts. Or join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. See, it never ends. There's always something. There's always something out there. But as it stands for right now, we're going to end today's something only to return, you know, at another occasion. So thank you all very much for listening. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I will see you next time.